Hey, are you looking to add a little spice, a little pepperoni, if you will? That reference will make sense in a second. To your AI comics or AI stories, maybe release them as a YouTube short or a reel. Well, this is the video for you because today we're going to take an overview look. We're going to go through all the steps necessary to release a mini movie, an animated AI comic to YouTube Shorts. Hey there, welcome. My name is Aaron. This is Camp Peculiar, a channel dedicated to visual storytelling using AI art. We make comics, we make games. Today, we're making an animated comic, a little mini movie using AI art. We're going to adventure together through all the steps necessary for you to complete your very own animated comic project. I'm going to be using Adobe Premiere today. You should feel free to follow along if you have that. If not, you're using a different package, that's fine. The whole workflow, the entire process should work no matter what package you're using. Now, an animated comic is different than a comic that you would read on Instagram or in a comic book or on a page or something like that. And it's got kind of 5 differences I just wanted to cover at light speed. Really quickly, these are 5 things you should kind of be aware of that are significantly different when you move into the animated comic arena. Number 1 is aspect ratio. Just keep in mind that YouTube likes things in the 9:16, the portrait aspect ratio, the 1080 by 1920, not 1920 by 1080 aspect ratio. Number 2 is speech bubble duration, the amount of time your speech bubbles are on screen and the amount of text that is in them when they are on screen is crucial and a critical part of making an animated comic. Yes, your reader could pause the video and read it, but usually they're just going to let it go by. And so determining the right length of time to have a speech bubble on screen is key, and we're going to go over it in this video. 3, total runtime. Unlike a normal comic or a webtoon where you can make them as long as you want, you're limited to 60 seconds or less, really 59 seconds or less for the YouTube Shorts format. Number 4, just keep in mind that there's 2 basic approaches to making an animated comic using AI art. One would be what I'll call the storyboard approach, where there aren't panels and sort of distinctions between different panels. Everything's done sort of in full screen and you move through the story scene by scene. The other approach then would be to use panels, to actually animate in panels so that your animated comic looks more like a comic book. In this video, we're going to go with approach 1, which I'll call the storyboard approach. Number 5 is sound. You have to just think about whether or not you're going to introduce music, sound effects, and ambiance and all that kind of stuff into your animated comic. Oh, hey, I just wanted to remind you really quickly, I made a free resource that you can download from camppeculiar.com for this video. It's a bunch of speech balloons and speech balloon tails that are really easy to import into Premiere or whatever package you're using. We're going to be using them later, and I'll talk about them then. All right, let's dive into the overview of how to make an AI art animated comic. I've made 3 and released them, which by YouTube standards makes me an expert. So let's start with step 1, which I actually don't need the computer for. So we're going to keep talking here. And step 1 is story. You really have about 50 seconds of storytelling, which goes by really quickly. So a very clear, a very simple story is best. A gag, a bit, a pop culture review or reference, or just kind of a one-liner about something that's going on, usually work best for an animated comic when it's a YouTube short. If you want to do just like Marvel superheroes, but as pizzas, I think that works. You could go with Captain America, Iron Man, not looking delicious here. And then like the Thor one's cool. Like I could see that happening with like a rune or whatever that is in the middle there. That looks edible. So you have to have a pretty clear idea of what you want to say. It's worth going through your dialogue. I know it's not the funnest part in the whole world, but it's worth going through your dialogue and editing it for words and for clarity. Try to get all of those lines as short as possible because they're going to go by pretty quick on the screen. Step 2, you have your story done and you have most of your dialogue kind of locked down. So you know the characters that you need and you know the environments. Time to jump into MidJourney or whatever and generate a bunch of stuff. I'm going to assume you know something about generating AI art. For this example, I just remember that you need the aspect ratio to be 9:16 or whatever image you get needs to work vertically. The characters need to work vertically. And again, simple and clear characters and backgrounds are key when something's moving as quick as this is. Step 3, we finally get into Premiere and start making something. So you want to open that up, you want to start a new project, and then once you're in that new project, you're going to make a new sequence. So we're in Premiere Pro, and I'll just go ahead and set a project location, give the project a name, and then hit Create. So over here on the left, you're looking for the sort of project, not the media browser, but you're looking for just the project tab here where it says Import Media to start. We're going to select New Item, and choose sequence. Now, it doesn't matter what you really call your sequence here. I'll just call mine comic. But what does matter is that you go over to the settings tab. The preset I'm using is the digital SLR 1080p 30 frames per second. Again, doesn't matter a whole lot which you use here. 24 frames a second is fine, but I'm going to use 30 frames a second. Then I'm going to go to the settings and I'm going to change this from 1920 to 1080. And I'm going to change this from 1080 to 1920. And so then you can see we have the nice 9:16 aspect ratio that we're looking for, and we're going to hit OK. So there you go. We have an empty sequence ready to go. All right, number 4, this is my biggest hack. This is the biggest secret in the video, not including the Deadpool thing later, but this is really going to save you some time. What I do in Premiere is I make a transparent video clip, and then I set the length of that clip. I preset the length of that clip on the timeline to 15 frames. That's half a second if you're running at 30 frames per second. All right, so here's how I create a clip for timing out my comic. Over in the media area, I'm going to right click and select new item, and I'm going to choose transparent video. Again, you can do this with a color matte, you can do this with an image. It doesn't really matter what you put here, but if you don't put a transparent video, then you need to turn the visibility of the layer off. I'm going to call it half second, and I'll drag that out on the timeline. So I changed the playhead here to be at 15 frames, which is half of 30, which will give me a half second. Then I'm just going to drag this over here, and now I have this half second clip. You can drag this timing clip up a few layers to give yourself some more video layers. And again, if it's not a transparent video but something else, you can turn the visibility off so that you don't see it. It's only here so that we can snap other things to it and that we know it's exactly half a second. All right, so let's add some text using the Essential Graphics tab. You can get it by going to Windows, Essential Graphics, and we're going to, under the Essential Graphics tab, under My Templates in the Local Templates folder, we're going to go ahead and find just the generic title template. Should work just fine. So basic title works good, and we're going to go ahead and drag that in. So then we can go and copy our text out of wherever we wrote it, double click on the title here, and add it in there. And then we'll change the font from Myriad Pro to something from Blambot. Let's just go with, well, these are kind of secret agents, so it feels like they should be secret agent regular is what it feels like. So here's the thing with animated comic text. You want to make it clear, simple, and use as few words as possible and as few lines as possible. 1, 2 lines is great. Once you start getting to 3, 4, 5, that's a lot for the eyes to have to track when somebody's trying to read it in a video. And these are generally going to be watched on a phone, on a small screen, so making the text a little bigger than you normally would is also a good idea. Step 5. I know we don't want to do this. We just want to get into animating stuff and making things look pretty and fun, but I would really recommend doing the text first. So the next thing you want to do in this get the text on screen part is you want to space it out kind of roughly on the timeline so that it's about the length of the final piece. And to do that, you need to know how long should a speech bubble be on screen. And so in my, again, immense experimentation of this, I have found that 1 second is a little quick, 2 seconds is even a little quick unless it's just one word, 3 seconds seems to be about right, 4 seconds is a tad long, and 5 seconds, that's like a crazy town of slowpokes if you get what I'm saying. So we're going to time this out to 3 seconds. And again, my favorite way of doing that would be to just duplicate, put the playhead at the end of this half second, and then hit paste. We know that's 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. An alternative way of doing that would be to create another transparent video item over here and call it 3 seconds, and then get rid of those and put the 3 second timing clip on there. So now we know that's 3 seconds exactly. And we'll move the playhead over here to 5:15, and then we'll know that that's exactly 3 seconds right there. So now I can just use this to snap the text to. And I know now that that text is going to be on screen for just 3 seconds. So he's just going to say Pepper Splodies, the latest in pizza crime fighting tech. It's a little long, but we'll go with it for now. The other thing you might want to do is, if you're seeing black text, is change the fill color to make sure that it's white for right now. We'll eventually change this back to black once we get the speech balloons underneath there. So the next question you're probably asking is, well, how much time should there be between speech bubbles, either in a conversation or when a character has multiple things that they're saying in a row? How much time should you allow between each speech bubble? 0 seconds is too quick unless it's like really rapid action, but it's actually hard for the viewer to track that the bubble has changed on screen. And if they miss that change, then they might assume the same person is talking. For me, I found that about a half a second works just right, and that's why I create that transparent video clip that's spaced to exactly 15 frames or a half second. So to time out the space between the dialogue or how long dialogue appears on the screen, I'm just going to grab that 15-second clip there, and I'll go to the timing layer and hit V, and that gives me 15 seconds, and I'll move that guy right there, and then I'll go to that one. You can kind of check your work as you go along. It's not crucial that you get this all exactly right, but just knowing that I'm on round numbers makes me feel good because I like round numbers. And one more little 15-second break there, and then we'll snap that one to right there. So now I know these gaps are all 15 seconds, and that's going to be the length of my comic with a little bit of an outro, probably some kind of outro there. So step 6, you have all of your dialogue in there. It's roughly timed out. Step 6 is that we're going to now put characters in there. So import your character artwork into your editing package, into Premiere, and then we're going to actually put the characters on the stage and lock down that timing. All right, time to import our artwork. And so we're going to go ahead and go back over to sort of our media area, our bins, and we're going to go ahead and we'll right click, select import, and then we will grab our superheroes, our base, our backgrounds, all that kind of stuff like that. They've all been separated in Photoshop, and we're just going to put the right character with the right section of text. So this person starts talking here, and that's superhero A. To move this character into their general position, you just select the clip from the timeline. Make sure you're on the Effects Control tab with the clip selected. And then if you just click the word position, you'll be able to drag it around. The other way that you could do it is by sliding your mouse left and right over the tops of the X and Y coordinates. Or if it doesn't have keyframes on it, you can just left click the word position and then move your art into sort of its general position, which I think is going to be right there. And then we're going to go ahead and grab the next person. They need to be on a separate layer. So we'll put superhero B right here. So you could flip this character around in Photoshop and then re-import it, or just save the image and it will update Premiere. Or you can go over here to the Effects tab next to Essential Graphics. You might have effects, or you can just bring up the Effects tab through here. And then in the search field, we'll type in flip, and the one we're looking for is a horizontal flip. We'll drag that right on top of the clip, and now he's facing the right direction. Again, we'll click on the word position and then move this little secret agent superhero pizza tech developer over here. And you can see now we need to actually move the text so it's going to make sense for where he is actually at. So step 7, add background artwork. If you have transitions from background to background, then you need to add a little extra space in between those so that you can animate those transitions if you want, or you can just do a hard cut between them. Next step is we're going to add in the background stuff now. And again, that needs to be on its own layer, its own timeline layer. To scale the image, if it doesn't have keyframes on it, you can just click on scale and then drag the corners. It has a uniform scale checkbox, so you don't need to hold shift or anything like that. It is a little bright. It's distracting with the character, so we'll turn down the brightness on a little bit, and by that I just mean adjust the opacity. So with that clip selected, again in the effects control under opacity, we're going to go ahead and left click on 100 and then begin to left click and drag to the left, which will reduce the opacity, or you could just type a number in here. We'll go with 25, seems about right. So step 8, it's finally time to add speech balloons. Here's where you're at. You're done with your story. You got all your text on there. It's pretty much timed out the way it's going to be. Everything's sort of popping on and off stage at the right moments. Now you can go ahead and import my speech bubbles package. Here's how you do that. You just go to camppeculiar.com, click on the resources button down here, scroll down and find the AI animated speech bubbles, download that, unzip it, import that whole folder into Premiere, and then you have 3 different bubble shapes and a bunch of different tails. The cool thing about these speech bubbles is that when I exported them from Photoshop, they're all just the exact size of the image, which makes moving the anchor point, or what sometimes we call the pivot point, around. So it makes rotating that tail and squashing and stretching things really easy, so that you can actually scale the balloon down to fit your text, or scale it up, or rotate that tail around. Let me show you how it works. And you can see we have 3 different bubble shapes and a whole bunch of different tail shapes. Let's go ahead and add those now. We'll go to the first section of talking, which is right here. And the speech balloon typically will be above the character, but hopefully they won't touch at all. And we'll just pick the first bubble right here. So we need to move this bubble into position and adjust its size a little bit. Both things really easy to do. Just select the clip in the timeline, click on the word position, move the bubble into sort of the general position there. And now we can't see the text anymore, so we'll just select that particular text. We'll go over to Essential Graphics, make sure we're on Edit here, select the text, and change the fill to black. So back at this first character talking, we're going to select the bubble 1 clip in the timeline. And you can see the bubble's a little bit too big. So what you want to do is turn off uniform scale over here under the effects control tab. Just turn off uniform scale, then you'll get access to both the width and the height. And we're just going to reduce the height and maybe increase the width just a little bit. Doesn't matter if it goes off screen a little bit there. And there we go. Next thing we need is to add a tail. So pick the tail that you like. I'm going to go with the tail curved to the right. She's on the right hand of the screen, so I'll pick that one. And again, the tail needs to be moved up, so we'll select that clip in the timeline, choose the word position, and then move it up to wherever you think it should go. And now let's add the speech balloon for Superhero B. And this is where you would normally have to make a decision of whether or not these characters are going to be on screen at the same time. Because if they are, then Superhero B needs to stay on the layer that he's on now so that Superhero A can come over they can be on screen at the same time. And in that situation where they're going to be on the screen at the same time, I would need more layers here for 2 more comic bubbles. You can see I ran out of layers, ran out of video layers here, so I would need to add a layer. So since my characters aren't going to be on the screen at the same amount of time, I'll drag her back so she just ends right there. And then I'll drag the Superhero B up to that same layer because they're never going to overlap, so it's okay if they're on the same layer. And then we'll grab the bubble and the curve, move the playhead to the beginning, hit Command or Control V to paste those in, and now he has a speech bubble. But as you can see, we got some work to do. We could apply the flip effect to this one, or we could just drag out the left bubble right here. Click on the word position, move the Secret Agent's Pizza Man's bubble tail up into the right position there. And you can see his bubble needs a lot of work, so we'll select that in the timeline, and we will go up and make sure that uniform scale is turned off, and we will adjust both the height and the width. So step 9, you're just going to play through your animated comic in Premiere a bunch of times and see if the timing feels right to you, if anything's too quick or is taking too long, and make those adjustments now before we add in animation. So step 10, you're pretty much done with your comic at this point, but it has a lot of just hard cuts. Things just jump onto the stage and then leave the stage. There's not a lot of like animation or fluidity to it. Now's the time to go in and add that animation. Let me show you how to do that with bringing characters on the stage and fading things and adding a few finishing touches. So to animate the characters sliding in and off the screen, it's pretty easy. What we're going to do is come to the first character here, Superhero A, select that clip. We're going to move forward just a little bit. I would suggest 3-4 frames at the most. So zoom in on her clip and then just move forward 3 or 4 frames, which you can do by just hitting this button, step forward 1 frame here, not the play button, but the one next to it. Click that about, we'll say 4 times. And then we're going to go up here to the effects control panel where we've been all video, and we're going to turn on the stopwatch for the positions. So to turn on the stopwatch, which allows us to set keyframes or record the position of things, we'll just click on it, and you can see it has created a little diamond shape there, which indicates that there's a saved position there, also called a keyframe. Then we're going to go ahead and use this step back button. You could also just drag the playhead back to the beginning. But instead, we're just going to use the step back, and we're going to go back 4 times back to the beginning, and we're going to set another keyframe. And so you can click on this little diamond up here to add a keyframe, or we could just change the position, and that would add a keyframe as well. But I'll go ahead and set one, and then we can't use the position trick anymore because there's keyframes attached to this, but we can just left click on this and drag, and we'll drag her off stage completely. And now you can see she will animate on. So if that feels like that's a little quick for you, then you can grab the keyframe up here and just move it to the right a little bit. Make sure that you just have one keyframe selected. It'll turn blue, and drag it 2 frames to the right and see if you like that timing better. So that feels pretty good. But now we have a problem. The bubble comes on before she does. So we will go ahead and move our playhead so that it aligns with the keyframe of where she's done moving, which is right there. And then we're just going to drag our bubbles so that they come on stage when she's done moving. You can animate all the other properties of any clip in Premiere as well. For example, when the secret agent, pizza professor guy, superhero is talking, he says yes, and then a bubble goes away, and then another bubble comes. To visually draw the watcher's eyes up to that, it might be nice to animate the scale of that, but you would have to animate both those two things, the bubble and the tail, which isn't hard to do. So to get the tail to scale into the balloon and not away from it, it's really easy. You just select the tail curved left, whatever one you have, select the tail curve, then come up here and click on the word anchor point. And then you want to left click and drag on this little crosshair guy and move that to the center of the balloon. And so now when we animate the balloon coming off the stage, so we'll go to the end here, move back 3 frames, and then we'll set a scale keyframe on the bubble, and then we'll set a scale keyframe on the tail. Then we'll move ahead 2 frames to the last frame that they're on the stage, and we'll scale the balloon down first, and so we'll just have it go off that way. And then now when we scale the tail, it will actually scale into the bubble. Because its pivot point is higher, moved up to where the bubble is, it scales towards its pivot point, and so moving the pivot point higher allows it to scale into the balloon. And so we can see that that looks a lot nicer. Step 11, this would be the time to add music if you want. If you want to add music, things that are helpful sometimes are to have a very subtle audio cue that a text bubble has popped up on screen, slight sound effects just to set the mood. Generally speaking, music over the top of the whole thing doesn't tend to work that well, but you know, you're the comic creator, it's totally up to you. I would keep it simple, keep it subtle, and keep it low. Step 12, you're done. You did it. Great job. It's time to export your animated comic as a movie and then post it wherever you want to. I'm going to do that in Premiere, and I'll just show you my really quick workflow. The only thing you need to remember is even though your sequence is at 1080 by 1920, usually in the export options, when you export that movie, you may need to have to respecify that you want the exported media file also at 1080 by 1920. Posting a short on YouTube is pretty easy. It's just like uploading any other video with just 3 exceptions. 1, the video has to be at 1080 by 1920. 2, it has to be less than 60 seconds, like less than 59 seconds. And 3, you should include the shorts hashtag, and then do what every other YouTuber does and just put a bunch of other shorts related hashtags in there. I think the # shorts is the only one that matters, but you often don't find a video with just that hashtag. All right, so that was an entire overview of how to make an animated AI comic in Premiere. I know we went over it quickly, so if you have any questions or you would like me to expand on any of the topics covered, let me know in the comments below. Also in the comments below, you can just say hi, let me know what type of comic project you're working on or visual storytelling project you're working on, or let me know if you think that this restaurant idea is legitimate, right? Just let me know. I just want to know your thoughts right off the top of your head, but like it's a restaurant and it's just called Deadpool Pizza. Does that work if you get that license or not? I don't know. I know we would have to have like a chimichanga, I think, flavored pizza in there. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Also, like and subscribe if you found this video helpful at all. And I will see you next time at Camp Piccooli.